Hello, everyone. My name is Chanel Smalls. I have chosen to do my older adult presentation on a 69-year-old African American male. I chose this particular person because of his mannerism, his attitude. At 69, he's retired, but he gets around really well. He always looks out for other people. He also attends adult daycare, but it's not that he leaves. It's just giving him something to do, and he attends the one at his church with the people of his peers. They go on trips. It's giving him that social, taking up that social part of his life. And throughout the presentation, I will refer to him as George. The developmental stage of Erikson that I have chosen is intimacy versus isolation, young adulthood. And I have chosen that because I want to talk about how George has gone from young adulthood into middle adulthood and the things that he's gone through and what was the outcomes. According to Erikson's psychosocial development stage 6, intimacy versus isolation, the conflict is intimacy. During this time, your young adults have the desire to be accepted and seek the resources that are needed to condition themselves to become approach motivated. Intimacy is the willingness to make a commitment to another person, ability to share at a deep personal level, and capacity to commute inner thoughts and feelings. Isolation is the inability to commit, share deep feelings, and communicate. During young adulthood, George belonged to a church. He was very active in the church. He actually met his first wife at a church camp that he had been participating in. Something that the church did for young adults and the adolescents. And during this time, he met his first wife. He fell in love. He believed this was his soulmate. At the time, he thought he had, really found true love. Also, during this time, George was going through the stages of obtaining employment, which would lead to a rewarding full-time position. After meeting his first wife, they got married. They had 2 children, 2 boys. George then, obtained employment at Sears and Roebuck. He got a full-time employment as auto mechanic. Then, next thing, he was on the road to, he had a home for his family, but now he wanted to purchase a home. Also during this time, George was mentoring and in charge of the youth group at his church where he was a member. Also, he was able to provide financially for his family, because now he had a full-time job that was paying really well. He had his wife. He had a family. He had 2 sons. So everything seemed to be going pretty well. His wife stayed home to take care of the kids so George can work, and he made sure his family had everything. The challenges with it was, because George wanted to purchase a home, in order to do so and be able to save money, he had to ask his mom if he could move back in with her and bring his family. And it was a bit of a challenge because he needed to save money. It was kind of a challenge because who wants to move home with their parents? After being out there on your own, you're handling, you're being a responsible adult. You're taking care of your family. You're going to work everything. You're making sure they have everything. So now you're moving back home. But During this time, it was this is what was expected, that you would purchase a home and not rent. You know, if you could purchase a home, that meant you were successful. Intimacy as a reciprocal process in which the behavior and feelings of one partner influence the other, hence the quality of the relationship. One of the crucial development tasks of young adulthood is to establish and sustain a committed romantic relationship, which in turn help individuals establish more mature and serious adult relationships and promote their mental health throughout the lifespan. So around this time, it seems that George was probably the big influence on his wife. So he basically had the say so of how everything went. Like his wife just took care of the home, took care of the children, made sure, you know, the house was clean, made sure everybody was fed, you know, and this was normal for them, as so they thought. And their, you know, the interaction between George and his wife, they didn't really pay attention to that. You know, George stayed out of the house a lot. You know, he went to work. He worked many hours during the week to make sure his finances were okay. He wanted to make sure he had a savings as well as enough money to take care of his family. So he and his wife, you know, being intimate with each other, and it has nothing to do with sexually, but being intimate with each other, that was something, you know, talking to each other, communication. How are you feeling today, honey? How are you doing? You know, none of that was something that they, you know, was part of the life that they were living. You know, the focus was just mainly on making sure everybody was taken care of. Again, focusing on providing for the family became the main goal for George. The influences of the church, because in the church you meet, you marry, you raise your family, you take care of them. Of course they attended church together because they belonged to the same church. You know, culturally it is the responsibility of the man to provide for his family. The stern upbringing from his mother, who motivated George to become an upstanding role model. You know, even though his mom raised him in a single parent home, she still raised him to be an upstanding man. Like, you provide for your family. You take care of your family. Your wife should, you know, only be home cooking, cleaning, and take care of the family, making sure the kids are okay, and make sure the household is okay. You are the financial provider. Coming from an impoverished family and neighborhood was the determining factor for George to work so hard so he could accomplish something in life. In the years during George's adulthood, it was the duty of the man to make sure his family had everything they needed financially. Again, everything during this time with George was making sure his finances was okay. His bills were paid. There was food on the table. There was a roof over their head. They had a savings account. You know, nothing else came into play during these times. They didn't talk about vacations or anything because George stayed out of the house most of the time because he worked. He just worked to make sure his family was okay. Religious institutions always have had a great impact on people of the world. Being a part of organized religion has contributed to the way individuals conduct their lives, maintaining a positive attitude throughout his young adulthood came partly from the experience of being an active member of the church. George and his first wife ended their marriage around the time they reached middle adulthood because of the divorce. George went into isolation for the next several years. Everything that I previously spoke about, this is what the end result was. They were a part of a church, but they never became a part of each other. They went to church. You know, they were very active in the church. You know, they participated in church activities, but they never interacted with each other. They never, the level of communication was not there. They didn't develop a friendship amongst each other. George just, he says he came home one day and his wife said she had had enough. She was ready to go back to school. She was ready to move on her own and, find her own identity. She had lost herself throughout the marriage. And George didn't understand at the time where she was coming from because, from where he come from, he felt as though he was doing everything that he was supposed to do. Taking care of his family and making sure they were financially stable. That's his mindset was just focused on being financially stable. So they divorced and George went into isolation for the next several years because he was so distraught at what had happened because he felt he had done everything he was supposed to do, everything he was taught to do as a man. Everything, all the influences, his mother, the church, the community in which he lived, they all influenced his life, and he felt as though he did everything that he was supposed to. So he was very heartbroken and came to the point where he just was not going to marry anymore. He was not going to date. He just went to work and came home. And it was not until George met his second wife, his current wife, that he realized that he was turning into what his father was, that he was just existing and not living, and he didn't want that for himself anymore. So he decided that it was time, and he met his current wife through a friend. And from that point on, George decided he was going to start living and not existing, enjoying life, having fun, and doing the things that he needed to do. It was a failed marriage previously, but he learned from his mistakes. He and his wife now, they communicate. They have a very good friendship. They have a very loving friendship. It's true love and friendship combined in one. Another theory that can describe what George had been experiencing is the ecological theory, and it's described as a human development pertaining to the aspects of the individual, the environment, and the interaction between the two. George has built his life according to the influences of his mother, the church, and the community where he lived from childhood into young adulthood. All of these multi-systems assisted in the choices he made throughout his life. The limitations from the Erikson's stages of development are, Erikson emphasizes on stages of development can be limiting because there are so many individual differences in development. Placing people in particular stages based on their age can be problematic. Even though I chose to do intimacy versus isolation, there was also some of stage 7, which is gerativity and stagnation, also being experienced during this time. And the stagnation part, I believe, was what his first wife had been experiencing because she didn't get to, she was, she raised her boys, she took care of the home, but she didn't have an identity of her own. So that's how it can become a problem because you can go through different stages at different points of your life. A 25-year-old can experience something that a 35-year-old is experiencing, or somebody 40 can be experiencing it as well. And I would like to thank you guys for